The discovery and first mysteries of the Voynich Manuscript. In the year 1912, inside a crumbling villa near Rome, an antique dealer named Wilfred Voynich stumbled upon something that would become one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of all time, a book that even after more than 100 years remains unreadable, undeciphered, and unexplained, a manuscript that would bear his name forever. Voynich was not just a random collector of old books, he was a passionate bibliophile who traveled across Europe in search of rare manuscripts and secret writings, and when he opened a chest that day, among old parchments and dusty bindings, he found a thick, strange book filled with mysterious illustrations and an unknown language written in looping letters that no one had ever seen before. The book was made of vellum, animal skin, and contained over 200 pages, and from the moment he laid eyes on it, Voynich knew he had something extraordinary, but he had no idea that this discovery would baffle the greatest minds of the century. The manuscript was later called the Voynich Manuscript, after him, and it instantly became an object of fascination, curiosity, and fear. When Voynich flipped through its pages, he found drawings of plants that did not exist in nature, diagrams of stars and astronomical charts that looked both familiar and alien, strange illustrations of naked women bathing in green pools connected by tubes and networks, and most of all, a text written in a script that flowed beautifully but carried no meaning to any known language. The letters seemed like they belonged to a real alphabet, not just random marks, because they followed patterns and repetitions, yet no one could read them, not then and not now. Voynich took the book to scholars, linguists, and historians, and every single one of them admitted they had never seen such a thing before. Some believed it was written by a medieval monk hiding knowledge in secret code, others thought it was an alchemical text filled with hidden recipes, while some even whispered that it might not be of this earth. As news of the manuscript spread, it drew the attention of libraries, collectors, and universities, but also of spies and codebreakers, because the world was standing at the edge of wars, and secret codes were a matter of life and death. Yet, the Voynich manuscript refused to reveal its secrets. When experts examined the book physically, they found that it was written on high-quality vellum with quill ink, the pages carefully prepared, and the illustrations painted with natural pigments, suggesting it was not a forgery of modern times but truly a work of centuries past. The script itself, now called Voynich's, behaved like a real language in many ways, with certain words repeating, others appearing in certain contexts, and sentences flowing with rhythm, but it was unlike any language ever recorded in human history. It wasn't Latin, Greek, Arabic, Hebrew, or any European script, nor did it match any Asian or African language. The alphabet was unique, the grammar unrecognizable, and the meaning forever locked inside. Voynich himself tried desperately to decode it, writing to famous scholars, linguists, and cryptographers, but none of them succeeded. The more people studied it, the more they realized it was not nonsense, because nonsense cannot hold consistent structure across hundreds of pages, yet if it was a real language, where were its speakers, its culture, and its history? The manuscript contained 6 main sections, divided by style and subject. The first section, known as the herbal section, showed drawings of plants, many with roots, leaves, and flowers, but strangely, almost none of the plants matched real-world species. Some looked like distorted versions of common herbs, while others appeared completely alien. The next part, the astronomical section, included diagrams of suns, moons, and stars, some arranged in circles, others showing zodiac symbols like Pisces and Sagittarius, but drawn in odd styles. Then came the biological section, perhaps the strangest, filled with illustrations of nude women immersed in pools of green liquid, tubes connecting their baths, suggesting strange experiments or rituals. Following this, the cosmological section displayed circular diagrams that looked like maps of other worlds or cosmic realms. The pharmaceutical section contained pictures of jars and containers, as if they were meant to store remedies, and finally, the recipe section, filled with pages of continuous text broken only by star-like symbols, almost like a list of magical instructions. Each section deepened the mystery, as it hinted at knowledge, science, or beliefs, but none of it could be confirmed, because without reading the language, everything remained speculation. When Voynich presented the manuscript to the scholarly world, he also uncovered a letter inside it, signed by a Jesuit scholar from centuries earlier, which claimed that the book had once belonged to the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolf II in the late 1500s. Rudolf was known for his obsession with alchemy and the occult, and the letter suggested that he had paid a fortune, 600 gold ducats, for the book, believing it was written by the famous medieval thinker Roger Bacon, an English philosopher and scientist who dabbled in forbidden knowledge. If true, that would mean the manuscript had been passed through the hands of emperors, alchemists, and secret societies long before Voynich ever found it. The connection to Roger Bacon, however, was never proven, and many believe it was simply a legend created to increase the manuscript's value, yet the possibility gave it even more mystery. As the years passed after its discovery, experts in cryptography tried their hand at breaking the code. During World War I and later during World War II, military codebreakers, men trained to crack the hardest enemy ciphers, looked at the Voynich manuscript, and even they failed. One of the greatest minds in history, Alan Turing, who helped break the German Enigma code, also studied it briefly, but even he could not solve it. Unlike a military code, which usually hides a known language, the Voynich manuscript seemed to hide an entire system of communication, as if it were from a culture completely erased from time. The more attempts failed, the more rumors grew. Some thought it was a hoax, a clever trick by some medieval scribe to fool buyers like Emperor Rudolf, but that theory fell apart when modern science carbon dated the vellum to the early 1400s, proving the manuscript was at least 600 years old. If it was a hoax, it was one created with unbelievable effort, using hundreds of pages of precious vellum, painted with real pigments, and written with endless patience. Why would someone go to such lengths, with no explanation, no translation, and no profit for centuries? Voynich himself died in 1930 without ever unlocking the manuscript's secrets, and the book passed into the hands of libraries, eventually finding its way to Yale University's Bionic Rare Book and Manuscript Library, where it remains today, locked in a glass case, studied by countless scholars, scientists, and even computer algorithms, but still keeping its silence. Even in the 21st century, with artificial intelligence, statistical linguistics, and the most advanced cryptographic methods, the Voynich manuscript refuses to be read. Its discovery in 1912 marked the beginning of more than a century of frustration and wonder, as if the book itself was alive, guarding secrets that humanity was not meant to know. The fact that it exists at all is terrifying to some and thrilling to others, because it proves that there are still mysteries from our past that science cannot explain, a puzzle that mocks our intelligence and reminds us that the world still holds secrets beyond our reach. The struggle to decipher the undecipherable. After the discovery of the Voynich manuscript in 1912, the world of scholars and scientists was set ablaze with both excitement and frustration, because here was a book that looked like a real scientific text, yet no one could read even a single sentence of it. At first, people believed that it was just a matter of time, because surely the brightest cryptographers, historians, and linguists would eventually solve it, but decades passed, and every attempt only deepened the mystery. One of the earliest scholars to study it in detail was William Newbold, a professor of philosophy who, in the 1920s, announced that he had cracked the code. Newbold claimed that the text was written by Roger Bacon, the famous English philosopher from the 13th century, and that the letters actually contained microscopic shorthand not visible to the naked eye. He even suggested that Bacon had used a magnifying glass centuries before such tools were common, hiding secret scientific knowledge in the script. According to Newbold, the manuscript revealed advanced discoveries like cell structures and spiral galaxies long before humanity officially discovered them. For a while, this excited the academic world, but soon, other scholars exposed flaws in his method, showing that Newbold's theory was built on imagination, not real science. After his death, his decipherment was abandoned, and the manuscript remained a mystery. Over the years, other theories surfaced, each one as fascinating as it was unprovable. Some researchers believed the book was written in a cipher, a code hiding a real language like Latin or Italian, and if the right key was found, it would unfold. Others thought it might be an invented language, like a conlang, created by someone for secret communication, possibly within a group of alchemists or mystics. Still, others suggested it might not be a language at all but an elaborate hoax designed to trick wealthy buyers, perhaps Emperor Rudolf himself. Yet the book resisted all these explanations, because the structure of the text seemed too natural to be fake. Modern linguists found that the patterns of words in the manuscript resembled the structure of real human languages, with repeating roots, prefixes, and suffixes, and even frequency patterns similar to spoken tongues, but the problem was that it didn't match any known system of speech on Earth. One of the most serious efforts to decode the manuscript came during World War II, when some of the best cryptographers of the Allies tried their hand at the puzzle. These were the men trained to break the hardest codes of the Nazis and Japanese, yet when they studied the Voynich Manuscript, they too failed. William Friedman, the legendary American codebreaker who helped crack Japan's purple cipher, devoted years to studying the manuscript with his team. They applied every known technique of cryptanalysis, searching for repeating patterns, testing hypotheses of substitution ciphers, and comparing statistical structures with known languages. Friedman eventually came to the conclusion that the Voynich manuscript might not be a simple code at all, but something far more complex, possibly an artificial language created according to unknown rules. Though he did not solve it, his conclusion pushed the mystery into a new direction. Perhaps the book was not hiding an existing language but was itself the record of a completely lost one. As the manuscript gained fame, so did its legends. Some claimed it contained the secret knowledge of ancient alchemists, recipes for the elixir of life, cures for deadly diseases, or even instructions for transmutation of metals into gold. Others whispered darker theories, that the manuscript was connected to witchcraft, forbidden rituals, or even messages from beings not of this world. The strange illustrations of naked women bathing in green pools connected by pipes fueled ideas that the book contained occult or magical knowledge, maybe tied to fertility, immortality, or hidden sciences of the body. The astronomical diagrams, some resembling the zodiac, suggested that it might be an astrological or cosmological text, guiding initiates through hidden truths of the universe. Yet, without translation, all of this was speculation. The Voynich manuscript seemed to invite theories endlessly, because it gave just enough to hint at meaning but never enough to prove it. In the late 20th century, as computers grew more powerful, scholars turned to machines for help. Statistical linguistics and algorithms were applied to the manuscript, and the results were both fascinating and confusing. Some computer analyses suggested that the language followed Zipf's law, a mathematical principle found in every natural human language, meaning the manuscript was likely meaningful and not random gibberish. Other studies found that the text had internal grammar-like rules, with some words appearing only in certain sections and others repeating at intervals, just like real languages. Yet still, the meaning remained locked. One study even suggested that the book might be written in an extinct dialect, scrambled with clever substitutions, making it impossible to recognize. Another theory proposed that it was a sophisticated hoax generated with algorithms centuries before computers, essentially a meaningless text made to look meaningful, but again, the sheer effort required for such a hoax made it unlikely. One of the strangest turns came when artificial intelligence was used in the 21st century to analyze the text. A team of researchers trained AI systems on dozens of world languages and then asked the machine to guess what the Voynich text might be. The AI suggested it could be a coded form of Hebrew, with the letters substituted in strange ways. They even claimed to have translated a few phrases, which seemed to refer to plants and natural remedies. However, the results were far from conclusive and were criticized by experts as speculative, with many believing the AI was simply forcing patterns onto meaningless data. Still, It showed how far humanity was willing to go to crack the code, even enlisting artificial intelligence in the battle against an ancient mystery. Despite all these efforts, the manuscript's meaning remains hidden, and that has given rise to even more wild theories. Some claim it is a book from a lost civilization, perhaps even Atlantis, carrying knowledge that was meant to survive the fall of empires. Others say it was written by an unknown genius who created their own language and script, leaving behind a puzzle for future generations. Some whisper it could even be of extraterrestrial origin, a book sent to humanity from beyond, its symbols and diagrams holding alien knowledge we cannot yet grasp. The illustrations of strange plants and cosmic diagrams certainly fuel such theories, because they look just close enough to reality to be familiar, yet just different enough to seem otherworldly. By the time the manuscript entered Yale University's library in the 1960s, it had become one of the most studied and most frustrating texts in history. Scholars from every discipline, history, linguistics, cryptography, chemistry, botany, astronomy, pored over it, each seeing in its pages a reflection of their own field, but none providing a final answer. The herbalist saw strange plants that might be hybrids or extinct species. The astronomers saw zodiac charts and stellar maps. The medical historians saw diagrams of women's health or alchemical cures. The occultist saw rituals and magic. And through it all, the script remained unreadable. In some ways, the Voynich manuscript seemed almost alive, changing its meaning depending on who was looking at it, refusing to give one final truth, as if it were designed to remain a mystery forever. What makes the manuscript even more chilling is its silence. Unlike other ancient texts, which may be in dead languages but can still be connected to known cultures, the Voynich manuscript floats in history without roots. Its plants cannot be identified, its script belongs to no known family, and its purpose cannot be guessed with certainty. It is as if the book arrived from another reality, a fragment of knowledge from somewhere outside human history, sitting quietly in a glass case, mocking every attempt to read it. To some, this silence is more terrifying than any explanation, because it suggests that there may be knowledge out there forever beyond our understanding. Theories, myths, and the shadows of the Voynich manuscript. If Part 2 was about the long and painful attempts to decipher the Voynich manuscript, Part 3 takes us into the wildest territory of all, the theories and myths that have surrounded it for centuries, theories so strange and fascinating that they keep the manuscript alive in the imaginations of millions, long after most ordinary books from that era have been forgotten. Because the truth is, when faced with something so stubbornly mysterious, humans do what we do best: we tell stories, we create legends, and we try to shape the unknown into something we can understand, even if that means venturing into the unbelievable. One of the earliest enduring theories is that the Voynich manuscript is a medical text, particularly one focused on women's health. This comes from the many illustrations of nude women, often drawn in baths, tubes, and pools filled with strange green liquid. Some historians believe these could represent medicinal baths, healing springs, or treatments for fertility and childbirth. The pipes connecting the baths could symbolize the female body, the cycles of reproduction, or perhaps even diagrams of organs that the author attempted to describe without modern anatomical knowledge. If this theory is true, then the book might have been a secret manual for midwives or healers, written in a coded language to keep its knowledge away from outsiders or the eyes of the church, which often persecuted women accused of witchcraft. It would explain why so many of the plants seem strange. Perhaps they were medicinal herbs known only to local traditions, drawn in a stylized way. But if so, why encode it in an unreadable language? Was it to protect valuable knowledge, or does the language itself carry the key to the recipes? No one can say. Then there is the alchemical theory. Many scholars of the Renaissance were obsessed with alchemy, the ancient art that blended science, mysticism, and the pursuit of ultimate knowledge. To alchemists, plants and stars were not just natural objects, they were symbols of spiritual truths and recipes for transformation. The Voynich's strange plants and zodiac-like diagrams could be alchemical in nature, each page a coded formula for creating the philosopher's stone, the elixir of life, or some other lost secret. Supporters of this theory argue that the manuscript was a working tool of an alchemical brotherhood, written in a cipher only initiates could read. But again, if so, then either all knowledge of that cipher was lost, or it was never meant to be shared with outsiders. Another possibility that fascinates researchers is the lost language theory. Some linguists believe the Voynich is not a hoax or a code but an authentic document written in a now extinct tongue, a language that left no other records. Perhaps it was spoken by a small community, wiped out by war, plague, or conquest, leaving the manuscript as the only surviving trace of their speech. If this is the case, then the book is more than just a puzzle, it's a tombstone for an entire culture, and unlocking it might bring back voices that have been silent for centuries. But if the language truly has no relatives, no surviving descendants, then deciphering it may be impossible. Without context, a dead language becomes just a series of symbols, as silent as the stones of a ruined city. But beyond the academic theories lies the realm of myth and speculation, where the Voynich manuscript has truly thrived. One of the most popular legends is that the book contains knowledge from Atlantis, the mythical lost civilization. In this telling, the strange plants are species that once grew on the lost continent, the stars and diagrams represent a cosmology older than our recorded history, and the language is that of Atlanteans, preserved by a secret order. If so, then perhaps the manuscript survived as a relic, passed through hands until it reached Europe centuries later. Of course, there is no evidence for Atlantis itself, but mysteries attract mysteries, and so the Voynich often becomes a canvas for humanity's deepest myths. Some go even further, suggesting the manuscript is not from a lost human civilization at all but from extraterrestrials. The odd plants that look almost like Earth plants but not quite, the strange cosmological charts, the unnatural script, all could point to knowledge from beyond our world. According to this theory, the book is either a gift left by beings from another star, or it is a record made by someone who encountered them. Imagine a medieval traveler, abducted or contacted, trying to record alien knowledge in the only way they could, sketching half-remembered images of otherworldly plants, alien medicine, and star systems unknown to us. Could it be that the Voynich manuscript is not unsolvable because it is too complex, but because it is not meant for human minds at all? Others claim the book itself is cursed. There are whispers that those who spent too much time studying it fell into madness, sickness, or despair. While there's no strong evidence of such a curse, the legend persists, because many scholars who devoted years of their lives to it died without answers, leaving behind only broken attempts and unfinished manuscripts. The silence of the book feels almost like resistance, as if it actively refuses to be read, and this aura of frustration has given it a reputation of being a dangerous puzzle, one that punishes obsession. Some believers even compare it to the Necronomicon, the mythical book of forbidden knowledge in H.P. Lovecraft's horror stories, suggesting that maybe the Voynich manuscript is itself a book of hidden powers we were never meant to unlock. Adding to its mythic aura, some of the diagrams within the manuscript seem eerily futuristic. There are circular charts that resemble galaxies, cosmological systems that some argue depict heliocentrism before it was accepted, and botanical drawings that resemble magnified microscopic structures. If Newbold's claim about spiral galaxies was dismissed, others still see in the Voynich hints of knowledge centuries ahead of its time. Could the author have been a genius, far ahead of their era, encoding discoveries that would not be understood until much later? Or does it suggest knowledge passed down from an unknown source, ancient, secret, and forbidden? In modern times, the Voynich manuscript has become more than just an academic curiosity. It has become a pop culture icon, inspiring novels, films, and video games. In each retelling, it takes on a new life, sometimes as a book of magic spells, sometimes as a code to treasure, sometimes as a weapon of knowledge too powerful to control. This transformation has made it part of the collective imagination, ensuring that even if it is never solved, it will never be forgotten. Because in the end, the manuscript thrives not because of what it reveals, but because of what it hides. Yet even with all these theories, myths, and cultural interpretations, the truth remains maddeningly out of reach. Scientists can tell us how the book was made. Radiocarbon dating proves the parchment was created in the early 15th century, and chemical analysis shows the ink is consistent with that era. We know it is not a modern forgery, and that the illustrations and writing were done by hand, carefully, with purpose. But as for why it was written, and what it says, we are still as blind as the first scholars who saw it. It is a mirror that reflects our own hopes, fears, and dreams of hidden knowledge. For every person, the Voynich becomes something different: a medical guide, a magical book, a relic of a lost world, or a puzzle sent from the stars. Perhaps that is why it still captivates us, because it forces us to confront the limits of our knowledge and the possibility that some mysteries may never be solved. The Voynich Manuscript stands at the border between the known and the unknown, a doorway that never opens but always tempts. And so the story continues, century after century, generation after generation, as new readers turn its pages, look at its drawings, and wonder what secrets might be waiting just beyond the reach of human understanding. The endless puzzle, why the Voynich Manuscript may never be solved. The Voynich Manuscript has lived through centuries of scrutiny, fascination, and obsession. Kings, scholars, cryptographers, linguists, mathematicians, computer scientists, and even code-breaking experts from the Cold War have bent their minds to its pages, each hoping to be the one who finally brings its secrets to light. And yet, after all the brilliant theories, after countless attempts, the book still stares back at us with the same mocking silence it has always held. In this final part, we ask the ultimate question: why does the Voynich Manuscript remain unsolved, and will it ever give up its secrets? Detective modern investigations. In the last few decades, with the rise of computers and artificial intelligence, new efforts have been launched to decipher the manuscript. Using algorithms to scan the text, researchers have discovered that the Voynich writing does follow patterns, frequencies and structures that resemble real languages. Words repeat, phrases appear consistently, and the grammar seems to have rules, suggesting it is not random gibberish. But the rules don't match any known language family. In 2014, a team from the University of Alberta used artificial intelligence to run pattern recognition on the text. The system suggested that parts of it may be written in an encoded form of Hebrew. Later, in 2018, another team claimed to have made progress by mapping some of the text to phonetic sounds, again pointing toward Hebrew roots. But these interpretations have never been widely accepted. Critics argue that if you search long enough, any code can be forced to fit a chosen language. Until there is a full translation that makes sense across the entire manuscript, no theory is truly proven. Other modern scholars have tried statistical analysis, comparing the text structure to hundreds of languages. The results: the Voynich script behaves like a natural language, not a hoax. Its words cluster like real words, its patterns resemble those of human communication. This is why many cryptographers insist it is not nonsense. But the question remains: if it is a language, why don't we know it? Puzzle piece: the psychological trap. The Voynich Manuscript doesn't just challenge our intellect, it tests our psychology. For centuries, it has been a mirror of human obsession. People project their own ideas onto it, seeing what they want to see: lost civilizations, alien knowledge, women's medicine, secret codes, or curses. In truth, the manuscript may tell us more about the human mind than about its own origin. The danger of such a puzzle is that it becomes a black hole of obsession. Many scholars have spent years, even decades, trying to crack it, only to lose themselves in frustration. Some left behind notes filled with wild interpretations, rambling theories, and incomplete translations. It is as if the book absorbs human energy and gives nothing back, leaving only mystery in its place. And yet, despite the endless failures, new people come forward every year, claiming they may have solved it. Why? Because the Voynich Manuscript represents something rare in our world, a true mystery. In an age where information flows freely and almost everything can be researched, the Voynich stands as a fortress of the unknown, daring us to scale its walls. Crystal ball: why it may never be solved. There are several reasons why the Voynich Manuscript may never reveal its secrets. 1. It may be written in a dead language. If the script represents a language that has no relatives and no surviving examples, then there may be no way to decode it. A language without context is like a lock without a key, it remains sealed forever. 2. It may be a constructed language. Some scholars suggest the author invented an entirely new language, complete with its own grammar and vocabulary. If so, then even if we decode it, the words may mean nothing without the author's original dictionary. 3. It may have been written to be secret forever. If the manuscript was designed as a code, perhaps the key was deliberately destroyed, leaving us with an eternal riddle. 4. Or, it may truly be nonsense. A small group of skeptics still believe it is an elaborate hoax, created to impress or trick a wealthy buyer. The patterns in the text could be an accident of careful design. If that's true, then there is no solution, because there is nothing to solve. And yet, if it were nonsense, why has it resisted the sharpest codebreakers for centuries? Why would anyone waste years creating hundreds of detailed illustrations and carefully crafted words? The sheer effort suggests purpose, not trickery. The Voynich does not feel like a prank. It feels like a message. Milky Way: the power of the unsolved. Perhaps the greatest truth about the Voynich Manuscript is this: its power lies not in being solved, but in being unsolved. The mystery is what gives it life. If tomorrow someone fully translated it and it turned out to be a simple medical handbook, herbs for stomach pain, plants for childbirth, would we still care? Or would the magic vanish, leaving only disappointment? The manuscript has survived because it feeds our imagination. It allows us to believe in hidden worlds, in lost knowledge, in secrets just beyond our reach. It is a reminder that the universe is bigger than we understand, that not everything bends to the power of human reason. And in that way, the Voynich Manuscript is less a book and more a legend, a living story that keeps rewriting itself with each new generation that tries to solve it. Balance scale: final reflections. The Voynich Manuscript sits today in the Bionic Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University. Encased in glass, under careful protection, it waits. Scholars still study it, computers still analyze it, dreamers still sketch its plants and stare at its stars. But the book remains silent. And maybe that is how it was always meant to be. Maybe the Voynich Manuscript was never a guide, never a map, never a spellbook. Maybe it was designed as a riddle from the very beginning, a challenge left behind to remind us that not everything in life is meant to be solved. Some things exist only to remind us of the mystery itself. Answer: the story of the Voynich Manuscript continues, not with an ending, but with an invitation. An invitation to wonder, to imagine, to dream. Because in the end, the greatest legends are not the ones that give us answers, but the ones that leave us with questions that echo across the centuries. The Voynich Manuscript is not just a book. It is a mirror of mystery, and perhaps its greatest secret is that it was never meant to be unveiled at all.